Welcome to Tigers SRD here on SportsRadioDetroit.com. Roger Castillo, Simon, Chris Brown, and a special guest, Casey Boguslaw, who we have not had on since the White Sox have decided to trade their entire roster, but I wanted to get him on and talk barrels, talk a little bit AL Central stuff, and talk wild card. And Casey, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
We're also going to talk a little bit about softball, exchange some stories there, and a little bit about really in terms of you guys are talking about your fantasy push, so I'm interested to hear more about your fantasy baseball pushes. I'm not going to lie because I'm out of my – right now I've lost 4 in a row. My pitching has collapsed. I mean, last week I lost to Dan Hasty, who I'm in the league with with Ryan Schuling, and I had a 100-point advantage heading with him in the last 2 days, and suddenly he came back and won. And he has the best record in our fantasy league, so Dan Hasty cannot do no wrong.
Well.
So Chris, you were saying that before we get to the Tigers, because there's really not much to write home about that, but your strategy is just to trade away the farm for veteran pitchers for fantasy?
Well, not necessarily. So I'm in a full keeper league, 16-team league, 25, 26, I think 27-man rosters now with an NA slot, and I basically tore down my team like 4 years ago, and I've just been stockpiling prospects since then. And now I have a pretty loaded roster, so I'm willing to trade. I still grab prospects though, just to use them as currency, and that's what I did earlier in the year. I traded Rafael Devers because my thinking was he might not hit for as much power as a lefty in Fenway, and then he goes out there and hits 103 mile an hour Aroldis Chapman pitch to Oppo, and I go, oh, all right, I didn't expect that, but it's fine. I don't know. I'm making a late run for some veteran pitchers to try to get in the playoffs.
Did you guys see that thing about Fenway Park that they wanted to change the name?
The road.
Oh, the pesky
road,
Yawkey Road, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that because the Red Sox, like much of Boston, unfortunately, has a bit of a history of racial insensitivity, shall we say, and so their new owner, being woke, wants to sort of right that wrong. But I'm sure I expected Kurt Schilling to lose his mind.
Oh man!
But I haven't checked.
Yeah. So it was. Sorry, I just wanted to throw it in there because you were talking about the ballpark, so just wanted to throw it in there. But let's go into the Tigers. The Tigers this week have not fared very well. It just seems like it's just and I want to be a negative Nancy, but I hate saying it. I don't even know why I said it, but there's not really much to say. I mean, the Tigers seems like there's been every day this week. It's been more than 10 runs a game, and you look at what happened with Angel Hernandez, which I want to get to, gentlemen. Let's start. Let's talk about Angel Hernandez, and then after kind of looking at a pitch, apparently something maybe was said. I don't know. But Angel Hernandez wasn't going to stand for it, and he kicks out Ian Kinsler, which led to Brad Osmus kicking out. And Casey, what is your experience with Hernandez in terms of just umpiring? Is he the ultimate on the West?
Joe West is hard to beat, but Hernandez certainly gives him a run for his money. And it seems like maybe I come from a background. West and Hawk don't have the best relationship. Hawk during the broadcast, whenever West is on, is always really, really ragging on him. So I certainly come from that background a little bit. But Hernandez, I think, nationwide is more despised than Joe West. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, just judging how I did a tweet kind of captioned this thing, and I got over 80 responses, and it was just insane how many responses. But for the Tigers, it didn't really matter how that played effect. The Tigers just looked inspirational, Chris, and it's at that point in the season where it's hard to talk about this team. Everybody's on vacation. Everybody's kind of mailing it in, getting those last-minute vacations before school starts. And here they are, back-to-back games where they give up more than they get 10 runs up on Tuesday, 12 runs up on Wednesday, and then everybody goes on Joe Jimenez because he has a bad outing. He's not the anointed one, and I just want to tell everybody, chill the F out. That's what I want to tell people. I don't know what you think, Chris, but they had to put Jimenez in at some point and see what he could do.
Yeah, well, I think that's sort of what people want them to do with more players. They want them to bring the younger guys up and throw them into the fire and let them fail a little bit so they learn. I'm sure people want to see Jamer Candelario up, and hell, some people might even want to see Dabo Lugo up. I don't know about that, but yeah, it's Jimenez has got a lot to work on, but he's not going to figure it out down in the minors, so they got to use him. And it's really, I don't know, the Tigers, there's still a quarter of the season left, and I think a lot of people are just like, looking at that football calendar, getting closer and thinking about that. But I don't know. It to me, they're sort of only worth watching when Fulmer and Verlander pitch. And it just so happened that this past week, these last couple of games, both of them were really off their game. Fulmer was coming back from an injury, and he, was not missing many bats. And Verlander just got hit by the homer bug again, which has happened to him several times this year. But beyond that, I mean, it's a bad team. Anibal Sanchez is one of your starters. Matt Boyd is a fifth starter, if there ever was one. Jordan Zimmerman just looks like just a terrible contract. There's nothing. And then Daniel Norris is working his way back, but he got shelled in Toledo in his rehab outing. So I don't know. I mean, really, right now, it all comes down to starting pitching, and the Tigers don't seem to have any.
And even with right now, the shows are kind of depth or anything they don't really have ready because they're talking about. Look at Art Lewicki, who's in Toledo right now. That's the kind of next guy up, him and Miles J. But you look at the numbers, and for Miles J, there haven't been anything to write home about. And the numbers haven't been. There's no real good strikeout pitchers right now, outside of what you see with even Bo Burrows, I guess. But he's 20 years old, so he's not even close to being ready. So Chris, there's no relief coming. There's going to be more bullpen help coming when it arrives because I don't really see any starters coming up.
No, and none of those guys are the answer anyway. I mean, Jay is a fifth starter if he's lucky. Lewicki could be a fifth starter. It's Burrows. You just be rushing him for no apparent reason. He's just now settling into Double-A. It's I think you're right. There's just not a whole lot to get excited about or discuss with this team, really. I mean, the one we were joking about it last week, but Mikey Matuk has turned into a pretty good story. It's small samples, but over the last month or so, he's been one of the 10 best outfielders in baseball by Fangraphs WAR at least, which is not something I think anybody expected. Mm-hmm. And and from watching him, he's hitting the ball really hard. His BABIP's up to like 390, so his batting average is probably going to fall. But he's hitting the ball hard. He's hitting for a little bit of power, and he's playing passable defense in center field. I'd still prefer him to be in right field, I guess, as a defender, but he might lack the profile right field power. But it's one of those strange things, where it was a move that everybody criticized Avila for, and it actually turned out to be like his best move of the season. So, I guess other than Alex Avila, but yeah, it's just weird how baseball can work that way.
Yeah, and it's interesting where you see. Well, I saw a list today about, and I forgot who posted it, how Wade Boggs' scouting profile looked as one of the worst. It was slow, and he was rated. So the art of scouting is, again, a science in baseball. Doesn't seem to be perfected or anything. You just never know. But with Matuk, look, I thought he was going to be on the what we like to call the all Margarita Don Kelly team, where it's just like everybody loves him because he's, that guy or whatever, and he's a fan with the ladies or whatever the case may be. I'm not sure who yours would be for the White Sox, Casey, in terms of, it's the way I look at it, I don't even know how to describe this kind of ball player, but let's just say, who's the most popular baseball player among the ladies right now in Chicago for the White Sox?
Nicky Delmonico is already turning some heads here. Guy who just came up. They already
2 homers last night.
He's got a career in Hollywood. He's a pretty studly dude, I guess, from what I gather on the Twitter.
Okay, because
he's got the name.
Yeah,
the name. Yeah, name's perfect. Sounds like a gangster.
Like everybody in
Mickey
this
D's.
Mickey D. I already see the ties in already, but I still haven't defined it because I don't want to. It's a crush. I want to say the Tigers crush because that Don Kelly, everyone liked Don Kelly. I didn't know why. Everybody thought just Don Kelly's the greatest guy in the world. Same thing. It's like he was the Brandon Inge kind of started that. Gabe Kapler when he was here too. I think I remember one of the games I went to. This girl I was seeing at the time was just like, "Wow, that guy's a football player. That guy's a stud." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." I go and then just to piss her off, I go, "What's his batting average?" So, but huh?
Yeah, it's similar to like the backup quarterback effect, where people just tend to like this random utility player who's a little bit handsome.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
Go on. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say about Mikey Matuk. He's got kind of sunken eyes. I don't know if he's a handsome fella, but whatever.
Yeah, he's been hitting well, and I have come around to him, and I like his consistency and his approach. They just showed his swing difference in Tampa, which he's lifting up his leg. It's more his swing has been getting more refined. So some credit to Lloyd McClellan for working on that too. Before we get to Casey and Barrels, the Tigers coming up this weekend take on the Tigers' schedule is not getting easier. They have the Dodgers coming into town and the Yankees, and then they go off to a West Coast They head west. They take on the White Sox and they go against the Rockies. But they have the Dodgers coming to town. Yasiel Puig making some comments, making some headlines saying, "I'll see you in the World Series." And Puig has come around to me, guys. I think Puig has come around. In terms of a player, you saw last year all the drama that was breaking out. It seemed like the last 2 years he's been a distraction, but this year has been clutch hitting. His arm, I think he's in top 5 among the NL in assists, and he's done a fabulous job holding on the right field. And he's one of the many stories they have on there with the Dodgers and the way they've just been able to, despite having 10 pitchers, 10 to 15, almost it seems like their entire staff on the DL at some point. Dodgers have been able to get it done, and gentlemen, this is not going to get easier for the Tigers, and also it's not going to get easier for me because I'm going to Saturday's game to get the Alan Trammell bobblehead, whether I come out of it with blood on my face. So, yeah,
well, the Dodgers are a juggernaut right now. They're using the DL to their advantage, as a smart organization should, especially a team that has such depth like that. But they've just got a remarkable collection of quality baseball players. I was looking at it today. They got like Kike Hernandez. It's like worth a win and a half, and just everybody they have there is pulling his weight. And not to mention the superstars they have.
Their backup catcher is
it Barnes? Was it?
Yeah, Austin Barnes is worth a 1.5 as well.
They're
It's like top 5 framing and all the catcher metrics he's way up on. They have depth for days. And even good point with Yasiel Puig. Puig is batting 8th for them. So not only does that says of course so much about their depth, but it also says about how great of a manager that Dave Roberts is. That he can get these guys to buy into whatever it takes to win. I don't think that anyone really would have seen accepting a role batting 8th in front of a pitcher. Which obviously, anyone that knows NL baseball knows that the 8th place batter is in a really, really bad situation because he's not going to get a lot of pitches to hit. But Puig is having a very fantastic year hitting 8th. You mentioned his defense. I was looking at DRS today, and he's in top 15 or something like that in defensive runs saved. A lot of that is his arm, but he's completely accepted that role. And I also saw the tweet today that this time last year, 1 year ago today, he was in AAA. So just says a lot about that guy and the whole team and Dave Roberts, and they got something really special going on right now.
And here's the reason why I still think at the end of the day, though, for me at least, this team has a battle tested to it. It's not, they did what they could last year in a series against the Cubs where you saw Jensen go out there almost 2 or 3 times in a row, and by the end of the series, his arm was falling off because he was the only guy out of the bullpen. And now they have a team where you look at, they have some depth in the bullpen, but the reason why I still think even the Tony Cingrati, is it Cingrati? Did I say that correctly? The guy from Cincinnati. It's still, I don't know if they have enough there to get him over the top. Because the Nationals, meanwhile, what's going on with the Nationals? Doolittle, I'm just drawing a blank on his name.
Madsen.
Yeah, Madsen.
They got Kinsler as well.
Yeah, they've combined allowed no run in the last 21 appearances, 21 innings or something like that, no runs.
Doolittle's been great.
Yeah, that was a great trade for the Nationals, and it's just for me. I look at the Dodgers postseason history since I was a kid, and with all the talent they've had, and this is all homegrown talent. This is also a young team too. I mean, the oldest guy in this team, in terms of outside of Chase Utley, is Justin Turner at 32.
Turner?
So yeah, Turner's the only. Yeah, he's the oldest guy, and then Grandali is 28. So still, that's not exactly old either. So for this team, I'm trying not to like jinx them or anything. It's just until I see some postseason success. To me in the last month or so has kind of turned around the team, and even with Bryce Harper's horrific injury, I'm surprised he does not have a torn MCL. I still think so far right now I think it's the Nationals.
It's good to be young. That's a
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nobody our age would come back from something like that without multiple pulled tendons or torn tendons. The one thing I will say that you can make the battle tested the fact that the Dodgers haven't shown a long history of winning recently, but you can't come back with the Nats as your rebuttal to that because they haven't won a series as the Washington Nationals. The other point that I wanted to make about the Dodgers is that it's going to be really interesting what they do. You mentioned that they're 10 to 15 competent starting pitchers. They could put any of those names in the bullpen and make that bullpen as deep as we've ever seen if they want to get really creative with it. Hyunjin Ryu coming out of the pen, if a guy can't get through the lineup a third time would be, way better than what most teams are throwing out there. They have, 7-8 names if they get these guys back from the DL, McCarthy and Kershaw, that they can use in whatever which way. It'll be interesting to see who makes, the playoff rosters each series just because of how much depth they have as starting pitchers.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. The Nationals have not proven they've been choke artists just as well. And Dusty Baker, as we know, is questionable as a manager. Yeah,
he's who scares me.
Yeah. And but at the same token, I don't know, it's just kind of one of those like baseball you're due kind of moments. But you look at the reason why I also think maybe it could be the year for the Nationals too is I will say this. I'll give credit's due. When they've given the Dodgers have used Pedro Baez a lot more efficiently than they did last year. Last year he appeared in 73 games, and this year he's up to 50. So I think if they keep him like relatively in a good amount here in the next month or so, and allow these guys to rest up a little bit, then I think that it really depends on how. And you absolutely right, Casey. You bring up a good point. If any of those guys come in from the DL into the bullpen, and we'll see Ryu this weekend as he starts, I believe Friday. He starts Friday's game against the Tigers, so we'll get a chance. And I love when National League teams come here. I really do, and especially the Dodgers. I'm actually looking at my Dodgers jersey in my closet right now, so I got a good deal on it. But we move on, and I wanted to, before we talk about the White Sox here, Casey, what is this? You've been teasing us a little bit about this new barrel thing. I wanted to hear about what you want to talk about in terms of teasing a little bit.
I wanted to throw this at you, and I'm sure Chris is probably pretty excited about it. But what I was looking at in preparing for the pod when we were originally going to record the other day is so we all know about the platoon advantage, that pitchers of the same handedness should have a advantage over hitters from the same side of the plate. And I was looking at barrels hit by left-handed hitters off left-handed pitchers and vice versa with righties, and I was wondering if you guys have any guesses who might be on the top of the leaderboards, in a negative way. What right-handed pitchers give up the most barrels to right-handed hitters and vice versa? What's lefty platoon guys we're seeing a lot of lefties hit barrels off of. Any guesses there, Chris?
Well, so if we're talking about barrels surrendered against right-handed hitters, I would think that Zimmerman and Sanchez would be up pretty high. Hell, maybe, I don't know, probably not Verlander, although he's been giving up a lot of home runs, but,
So what I was really doing, too, is looking at the difference, who's giving up more barrels, what right-handed pitchers that are giving up more barrels to right-handed hitters than left-handed hitters, having a reverse platoon.
What's it? Reverse platoon? Okay.
A big Tiger that kind of surprises Alex Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Only giving up one barrel to a lefty this year.
Well, that was, yeah, if you're not watching every Tigers game, which I wouldn't expect you to, of course, earlier in the season there was point people were complaining about Brad Osmus using Alex Wilson against a lefty hitter late in the game, and it backfired on him. And he said, he's our best pitcher against lefties.
Yep.
But everybody was like, whatever. Because fans don't know what to talk about. But that's interesting. I think it's because, I assume it's because he throws a cutter, like the old Mariano Rivera thing, where it's like, oh my God, it's almost better to be a right-handed hitter against him.
Well, can I take a guess on right-hand pitcher? What about Ricky Nolasco? Every time I see him in a highlight, there's a highlight of him, he's getting bombed, and he's allowed, I think, close to 30 home runs this season. I'm pretty sure.
I want to say, too, that, let me check this. Nolasco has allowed, I know he was way up, like most barrels allowed.
And I also have a feeling Rick Porcello's
he's second.
Up there, too. Oh, he's second? Okay.
Yeah, so here your top three. This is a name. I'll go backwards here. Rick Porcello has allowed the third most with 39 barrels allowed this year.
Yes.
And to put that in perspective, only 8 hitters have more than that. Ricky Nolasco has the second most. He has allowed 42. And then Matt Moore. What in the world is Matt Moore?
Really?
He's allowed 43 barrels this year. 16. So he hit almost 10% barrel percentage against Matt Moore, who, this obviously, the story, the big prospect. And he was even good last year. I remember watching him at NLDS against the Cubs, and he mastered the Cubs. And everyone was saying it was because the Cubs were pretty bad against lefties last year. But, he was sparkling in the NLDS, and then this year he has just completely fallen apart. I thought maybe Rietti was, the secret whisper. Not only did he kind of turned Matt Moore's career around, but he certainly turned Samardzij's career around last year as well. But Moore has gone completely in the opposite direction. The Giants are such a weird case. Somebody could write a novel about what in the world went wrong with the Giants this year. But Matt Moore has to be like several chapters of that book.
Yeah, not to get back to the fantasy team, but Matt Moore was another guy I was kind of counting on this year. Ended up cutting him about 2 months ago. That's kind of fascinating because, as you said, he was a big prospect. This is a guy who, 6-7 years ago, there was a legitimate argument about who the best prospect in baseball was: Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, or Matt Moore.
Yeah.
And I was just looking the other day. I think Matt Moore. So I was without access to terrific barrel information, I was looking at it and saw that Matt Moore and Jeff Samardzija both have some of the biggest discrepancies in FIP and ERA in baseball. So I was just assuming that the Giants have terrible defense, but you can't hide
part
from
of
barrels.
That's certainly part of it. Denard Span is certainly not bring chicken out there in the field.
He seems like too.
Yeah,
he's great.
A name we just were talking about, Tony Cigrani, has allowed more barrels against lefties than righties. If you're looking for him to be a lefty specialist. And another name that we brought up, I don't remember if we brought this up on the air, but Aroldis Chapman has only allowed 2 barrels this year, both lefties, and one was Devers.
Yeah, and then Rosario hit a home run from the other day. I don't know, he's not lefty, but
he's a switch, or is he lefty?
I don't know. I thought he was a righty, but in any event, I was just impressed with these rookies. But yeah, Chapman's been having a kind of an interesting year. I think he got ridden pretty hard in the playoffs last year and hasn't quite recovered. But
he's a righty. He went oppo. I recall that he went oppo to right field.
But yeah, that's interesting. I like, and the one the other day messaged you about they mentioned you on the Statcast podcast was about the which I really dug was the non-barrel BABIP. Just the idea because if you hit the ball hard consistently, your batting average on balls in play is going to be higher. We've seen that with guys like Miguel Cabrera for the most part, who are putting BABIPs in like the 350, 360 range just because he hit the ball so hard. But so it is interesting to find like you're stripping out even more of that luck to find out who's really like getting lucky on the bloops and in the flares or shortstop.
And I've owned Jose Altuve in fantasy for the last several years in Keeper League. And he's such a fascinating guy to watch. And last year he actually was doing pretty well barrel-wise, and this year it's gone down a little bit. But obviously his production hasn't been going down. But just watching him, a lot of the times you do see him just dropping those little kind of bloopers, little flares in front of the outfield. And the plug on the article, but I was really kind of looking into, like, is there some sort of art to that? Is there a way that people can master that? And I brought up Tony Gwynn in the article that
the 5.5 hole.
He did it all the time. And you could certainly say it was an art with what he was doing, but how much of an art is it? I think you see it out of Daniel Murphy's another guy that I watch a lot that kind of just puts the ball wherever he wants to. Altuve, and then Chris Taylor has kind of been the master of it this year, and I don't know if that's going to be able to be sustainable because we just haven't seen it, and Seattle just let this guy go, so that obviously that they didn't see something special in him, but he's again, I mentioned the Dodgers having this really special year. Chris Taylor is another name.
Yeah, that's the one thing about the Dodgers. Well, among the many things is they seem to be able to find these guys who are reclamation projects, and then they turn them into like big time contributors. Justin Turner, where the Kenley Jansen, yeah. What who else was I thinking of? Well, like Andrew Tolles. He was like out of baseball, bagging groceries or something like that. Yeah. And, they just they're a well-oiled machine over there. So, but I love the work you're doing with barrels, and it's always fun to check it out. The Barrel King. Cracker Barrel?
Is that your on the back of your softball jersey, Barrel King?
I should get that. I don't even know if I was telling you guys, it's starting a new league this year with a bunch of new guys. I don't know what the jersey situation is, if we're going to have the players' jerseys.
I'm pretty sure anybody there's going to probably be better designed than some of the jerseys that came out. I'm sorry, some of those jerseys were terrible.
The nickname jersey?
Yeah, some of the I like some of the nicknames were cool. Like I like Toronto's jersey was cool. The Tigers, I don't know. Like I'm kind of The hat was an 8 Mile and special. It just seemed like something you would see on a gas station somewhere in Detroit. Just I don't know. It just seemed really generic. But anyways, at any rate, I do think if I'm going to go with a softball nickname, it was the Cuban Freight Train. Because literally when people when I started running, I couldn't stop. But once I stopped running, I'd fall over. I'm not even kidding. It was pretty bad, and especially playing right. I made a sliding catch once, and I literally stumbled right into the fence, and that kind of hurt a lot. So, but Casey, you're not managing the team; you're just showing up and playing, right?
Yeah. It really, I don't know. I only know one guy. One guy asked me to come play with his team. So, my team, I had a team that I played on for about a dozen plus years. And it dissolved 2 years ago, so I've been a floater, a free agent looking for new. Finally got one, and we were supposed to start on Tuesday. We got rained out, so I'll have to wait till next week.
Yeah, don't ever, if they ask you to manage, don't ever do it. Just word of advice. I stopped doing it last year. I think I told Chris this. I had guys who were complaining about their baseball, their stats. They were the way I did constructed the lineup. So I would bat a certain guy second because I knew the full well that the leadoff hitter usually got on. The second guy could hit, but he didn't have much speed. So I was like, all right, well, my strategy was, okay, if the leadoff guy, usually the quickest guy can get to first to third, the quickest on our team. If I get a guy who can slap a single to the left or right, he could probably score on, or he can go from first to third pretty quickly. And I was telling one of the guys that, he's like, well, this guy's not a really good hitter. He can just, but he's really slow. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to put all my team speed up first and have arguments with people. Here I am trying to drink a beer, an E-League softball. Not D-League, not C-League, E-League. Talk about drafting or strategies for softball and how to, or why would I place a runner or put a guy here or not, and just enough. I had enough. And they were talking about mutiny, and they're like, oh, he's not the team leader. I'm dead serious. Like, he's not the leader we need. I'm like, guys, it's damn beer league softball. And I had enough. And so one of the guys, this guy named Mark, and I'm not, his last name's not important. Huge Twins fan, trolls constantly Tiger fans. But at any rate, that's my softball bit. But another guy in this list, by the way, I wanted to ask you about was Delano the Shields, in terms of that on your article. And it just, for his speed, it's just for speed, correct? Is that why he's on this list so high?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really do a deep dive on him because I kind of just chalked it up to speed, and infield hits would just count as that. So if he's hitting a lot of ground balls the left side and beating them out, I mean, that's something that we can probably, it doesn't really pass the smell test as far as, yeah, there's probably a little bit of good fortune, and then you can give him some credit though, obviously for the speed. But if these guys are hitting the ground ball to the left side, is smart doing, and with this whole big fly ball revolution across the sport, there's still guys that shouldn't be hitting the ball in the air. There's guys that are just built not to do that. D. Gordon shouldn't be doing that. And I think the Shields, yeah, it's probably a little bit of good fortune, but I ran the numbers again since I did that like 2 weeks ago, and the Shield is still up there. So he's certainly getting some good luck going. But yeah, I don't know what it is other than that. Probably speed.
And then the guy Tommy Pham, ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Pham, 16th round draft pick out of St. Louis, and again the Cardinals. Well, let's just segue into the wild card series in terms of the wild card. The Cardinals, and Chris, kudos to you, because I think you were the one that did you say the Cardinals were going to win the Central this year? Or you were really high on the
me?
Yeah, you said about the Cardinals. You were really high on the Cardinals.
I think you said that before, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't me.
Was it me or no? Or was it myself that said that?
I know Marquise is always just saying that the Cardinals because of the Patriots of baseball or something like that. But,
yeah, but guys like Tommy Pham stepping up out of nowhere, and this whole wild card race has been fascinating.
Paul DeJong, out there hitting DeJongs all over the
Illinois
place.
State's own.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Is that the Skokies?
No, they're the Redbirds.
Okay, who's the Skokies?
Michigan just stole two of their assistant coaches in basketball.
Who's the Skokies then? What am I thinking of the school in Illinois?
Well, there's
a Skokie. There's a Skokie, Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some sort of forget it. I thought there was some sort of nickname. The school that started with there's Skokie, Illinois, because I know there's a manufacturing company out of Skokie, and I can't think of it.
Skokie's really Skokie's a blue collar town.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, the wild card has been interesting across the board, and there's this question going around on Twitter. The general consensus that all these below sub 500 teams are bad. Casey, what do you think? Is this better for baseball to have more teams in it so that way their fan base still stays entertained? As much as a cliche question that is, it's a question that I think for any fan out there to see their team is still around, even like Minnesota somehow is in this race. It's after trading everybody away.
Yes, I think I like it. I think that it keeps a lot more tenants. We have this gigantic race in the American League, and even though it seems like more than half the teams lose every night, and that's why it remains so close. Seattle's getting swept by Baltimore, and then Baltimore goes and loses to Toronto, and on the cycle goes. And, nobody can get really on a big run here and break away from the pack, but it allows some game to have some circumstance every day, and if there's one day game on, usually there's somebody in the hunt, and it is important to them. Is it the best baseball? Not really, but it keeps my interest up, and I like watching all the teams. And then right now I think the the Phillies are playing the Giants. I have no interest in watching that game, and that's a game I could just kind of throw away. I'm not gonna stay up late tonight watching Phillies Giants, but if it was Angels Mariners, I'm gonna stay up and watch it because it's important to the race, and these guys are fighting for something, and it's cool to watch. And even though both teams I think they're both below 500 or near 500, that doesn't really matter to me. It's because there's a playoff seed riding on those games, and the one game wild card certainly, I think that there's an argument whether that's a good or bad thing for the playoffs, but it's nice that maybe these teams aren't fully deserving of a playoff seed, but it's kind of nice that it's one game to get in. That's exactly what they're fighting for.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's a little bit different for our two teams because we're both completely out of it. And we're sort of the Tigers were in need of a rebuild, and so were the White Sox. But for all these other teams that are sort of not necessarily rebuilding, they might be rebuilding, but they're surprisingly competitive before they thought, or they're just trying to hang on, like a team like the Angels and the the Orioles. It's got to be really interesting, and it keeps, I mean, compared to what 40 years ago when there was no, I guess it's only 30 years ago when there was no wild card. I mean, we wouldn't have hardly any playoff intrigue at all at this point. I mean, what, the NL Central?
Yeah, that would be it. Yeah. Another cool thing about it is because we're in this day and age where if you're not competing for a World Series, you almost need to be rebuilding. It's kind of that way in all sports. We certainly see it really, really a lot in basketball, but it's starting to become that way in baseball too. But let's take the Brewers or even the Twins that are both in the playoff hunt right now, but they are rebuilding teams. They went into the season not having any playoff aspirations. Both teams sort of bought at the deadline. The Twins bought and then sold Jaime Garcia. But what I'm trying to make a point is that these teams don't necessarily have to sell the farm or ruin the rebuilding plan, even though they are in the hunt for this one-game playoff, because all it is, but it's still fun for the fan base. I'm really hoping that the White Sox can be that team next year, that they can already start calling up some of these guys and being at least in the hunt. I don't expect them to be a buyer. I don't think they will be trading for Manny Machado at the deadline next year. But if they're where the Minnesota Twins are right now next year, that's kind of fun. It's a reason to really put the game on every day. And like you made a point, Tigers, the White Sox fans don't really have a reason to turn on the games, at least from a competitive standpoint. You mentioned watching the young guys. I watch Moncada at bats. I kind of just hope somebody tweets that Moncada's up so I can flip the channel. But tonight I watched Ronaldo Lopez because obviously he's a part of the future. So there's that. But if next year at this time I'm watching Ronaldo Lopez starts and the Lucas Giolito starts and maybe Michael Kopech starts and we're still in the playoff hunts, that just brings it a lot better. And we wouldn't have that without the second wild card.
Yeah, and I think just the nature of playoff baseball, the way it's just sort of about whoever gets hot. You mentioned basketball, and basketball is such a bummer for, at least around here, for like Pistons fans, because they've been hovering around mediocre to bad for like half a decade now. They made the playoffs once, but you make the playoffs in the NBA, and you're not going anywhere. It's that league. We know who's going to be in the finals basically before the season starts. In baseball, you get one wild card game, you win that. You get a couple good pitching performances, you win the wild card series, and this team that won 81, 82 games in the regular season could actually make a legitimate playoff run. I think it's pretty cool. It feels almost like a mini March Madness, if you will.
Right.
No, and 2006 Cardinals are a prime example of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah. And, even a team like, historically speaking, for example, like the Diamondbacks, 2001 Diamondbacks, and even to a certain extent the 2003 the Florida Marlins are two teams that come to mind to me that if you would have told me in the beginning of those two seasons, especially the Diamondbacks, here they are after what happened with New York and what they're going through with the whole September 11th thing. And no, this is 2000, right? Oh, the Diamondbacks in 2001? Was that 2000?
Yeah, 2001.
Okay. So, all right. Well, that's right.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the Subway Series, and I always get that confused. But
2000.
So the Diamondbacks come in, beat the Yankees after all this momentum, and then in 2003, the Marlins off Josh Beckett. And this is a Marlins team that had to go through a pretty tough Cubs team that had all the accolades in the world, and they were able to get in there. And I think that's what I love. This is why I love baseball the most. Out of any sport, I love the most is baseball, because the parity itself is. You look at teams historically speaking. That 2006 Cardinals team had no business winning the World Series. That 87 Twins team, historically speaking, that's a team that had a young talent, but they overachieved and went above and beyond with just Frank Viola and just a pretty good bullpen, as I recall. So that's what makes this wild card interesting. But at the same token, you look at teams that they didn't give up too much, but the Tigers are in that spot where they can have anything to write home about. Like, again, that I keep saying that tonight. It might be my crutch phase. phrase. But the Tigers have been so bad that, I mean, unlike you, Casey, with the White Sox, you have some really young talent you can look at every night and go, okay, I can get excited for this. I can get pumped for all my prospects that are coming up and doing things and somehow making Mike Pelfrey a servable starter somehow, some way, savaging his career. Although his numbers don't indicate that, but still, there's a lot of things you can write about they're really good and go, okay, you know what? At least there's some sort of taking some sort of comfort. Right now, the Tigers are at that point where, their seventh or eighth starter in Toledo is terrible, and so if he comes up, he's going to get shelled. And here we are with Chad Bell and some guys who normally wouldn't be giving a chance, but they just don't have anybody else. So I think I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to be a cynical jerk about it, but it's the Tigers right now. As much as I watch them, it's kind of a brutal watch to watch right now. It really is.
I feel for you. I was living that life, last couple of years. So.
Yeah. No, it's a part of the natural cycle. No matter how much you want to build a juggernaut that lasts forever, this always happens. We had a nice decade-long run here, a little dip in the middle, but yeah, it's time for the lean times. Gotta head inside because winter is coming.
Yeah, and all the fans who are bitching and moaning, could some of Tiger fans go away? It's like, that's gonna be a reason why I'm gonna turn off my Twitter for a while because I'm just gonna hear Tiger fans. So, I see the real fans that stuck around. It's like you guys didn't come around until 2006. I don't want to hear it. So, yeah, I'm one of those guys. I'm like, I've been around. I was around when the White Sox had Alex Hernandez and Jack McDowell. That's how old I am. And that's those are the teams I faced in. Anyways, I digress. So we'll get into the Tigers minor league, but Casey, I want to let you go so you can get ready for anything you want to pimp out before you go. By the way, you can find Casey at robaseball.com, and his Twitter is at go ahead, Casey, pimp your Twitter for me.
At Casey Boguslaw. Make sure you're following at MLB Barrel Alert. For live updates of all the barrels that are happening, and yeah, thanks again for having me, guys. Like I said, I feel for you on the Tiger stuff. It'll change soon. It's certainly a down phase here. Traded Justin Wilson at the right time. I watched him throw 8 straight balls today for the Cubs.
Yeah, I haven't been following him too much. I know he got shelled his first outing with him.
He's been bad. I was listening to sports radio this evening, and people were not very happy with Justin Wilson.
I know that as a Tigers fans, we're pretty excited about the Paredes kid that they got in that deal. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess we could talk to you once Big Ten football season rolls around if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll definitely want to talk some Illinois.
Fighting Loveys.
Yeah, fighting Loveys. And check out the recent article that's been posted from Wyatt Asher about the Dodgers finding another gem, and that was a good read to read more about Austin Barnes, who, if you don't follow the Dodgers, you wouldn't know, and he's done a very good job. So, some good work there for Casey and his staff. So, thanks a lot, Casey, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
All right. Thanks. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you, Casey. See ya.
See ya. And so, Chris, there's the consensus here for the Tigers going with the system as we switch gears in for the last part of the podcast about. We all talk about Paredes being on the MLB pipeline, which is kudos. But then you see what's going on in the curious case of what's going on in Erie with the second baseman position.
Oh well, yeah, that Dawa Lugo.
Yeah, Lugo getting some time at second base.
Well, I think we sort of. Well, he just seemed like a guy who, as somebody who had played shortstop before. Like, most people don't think he can play there now, but he may get a lot of some of his value may just be derived from a chance to play third, short, second, and the corner outfield spots. And so it makes sense to try him there. If they think Jamer Candelario is their third baseman of the future, and he's a level above Lugo, well, it makes sense to try him at second. They don't have a second baseman, waiting in the wings to take over for Kinsler. So you try him at second now. If it works, keep him at second. keep him at second next year, and if he's hitting, well, there you go. You got somebody who can play second for you. It makes sense. I think he can handle it athletically. It's be about his pitch selection. Eventually, that's going to be what's going to if he's a quality player or not in the majors. But and when I say I think he can handle second base, I don't expect him to be a Gold Glover there or anything like that. But I think he could be in there at second base for you.
And especially with the depth right now, the Tigers do not have at second base. It's been here everybody was ragging about we traded for 3 third basemen, but here we are, or 3 infielders, and yet if he can successfully make the success change to second base, that gives the Tigers a lot more leverage, even with some of the guys they have in the Gulf Coast League and rookie leagues right now. I understand they did sign a lot of international signings, but if he doesn't work out, they still have a couple guys that could potentially come up relatively quickly that are in rookie league right now.
Well, I don't know about quickly, but
sorry.
When you're doing a rebuild like this, it's I don't know. You really just want to get guys that you think have talent, regardless of where they play. If you end up getting, if Candelario, Paredes, and Lugo all end up being guys who look like they're going to be future stars at third base, you're just fine. You can trade 2 of them or 1 of them or figure it out. You want the talent and you figure it out later. But with Lugo, it was like you said, he came up as a shortstop, so moving him to third or second base is just sort of one of those things that you do, and it just makes sense. Go forward, and I think we'll see Paredes do the same thing in the future, but they're going to keep him at shortstop for the foreseeable future. And I still think Anthony Pereira has a chance to be a solid second baseman down the line. That's a guy who he doesn't get a whole lot of publicity because his numbers don't really jump off the page. But when you look at him, he's playing shortstop, second base for the Whitecaps right now. He's 20 years old, which is younger. It's not super young, but it's younger than the average age of the league. And he's holding his own, hitting 260. He's got, I think, 7 home runs and like 25, 26 doubles. He's just, I always compare him to Eugenio Suarez. And I think he could be a solid major leaguer like that. It's going to take a little time, but that's, suddenly when you add these guys in the trades, someone like Pereira, you don't count on him as being the hope for the middle infield in the future. He's just another guy who could potentially help.
For the Tigers right now, especially you look at even in Lakeland right now with the progress, how is Sergio
Alcantara?
Yeah, Alcantara doing right now? And is he progressing well to he's going to probably start in Double-A next year?
He's just kind of middling right now. It wouldn't shock me if he's in Double-A next year. I'm still kind of curious about, based on what the Tigers did this year with their prospects and with minor league free agents, it almost felt like they just want to stock Toledo with
veterans
guys. And so when they need to call somebody up, it's somebody like Jim Adduci or Alex Presley instead of somebody like Mike Gerber. So that may have just been for this year because they didn't think guys are ready, or it may be the new organizational philosophy. We'll have to wait till next year to see. But I don't think Alcantara is just he's sort of of the 5 players the Tigers acquired in trades. He's the one that nobody talks about because it's not the sexiest profile. He's a loved guy with a strong arm who not a ton. He's sort of a smaller guy. He doesn't have any power. He's not speedy, even though he plays shortstop. So it wouldn't shock me if AJ Simcox in Erie has been turning things on the second half of the season, and he's another sort of light hitting infielder who probably has a utility future at best. But if they want to move guys up one level at a time, I could see Simcox moving up to Toledo and Alcantara moving to Erie. And then make room for Pereira and Paredes at Lakeland.
I'm getting excited more too about Mike Gerber. Mike Gerber came back from the DL. It seemed like he's turned it on since he's got back, and the profile on him gets increasingly stronger. That he could be more than just a 4A player. Would you consider that a general consensus, Chris? Because you keep hearing nothing but good things, and I'm trying to avoid the quote unquote fanboy thing of it. But he keeps doing very well, and it's just even after the DL, he continues to grow as a player.
Well, so I had sort of an extended conversation, Twitter.
That's why I wanted to bring it up there.
Publicly
Yeah.
and in our direct messages.
Okay.
And I still think Gerber is probably a fourth outfielder at best. Maybe if the Tigers are really bad, he's playing every day in left field or right field. Probably right field. But I think that there's some value there. I don't think he's a non-prospect or an org guy, despite the fact that he's 25 and in Double-A. And this was sort of the argument we were getting into about his age. And it's true. The best players make it to the majors quickly. I mean, the guy I love to bring up, I'm just going to bring him up every episode, Ronald Acuna. He's a little over 19 and a half, and he's a league above Gerber. And he just hit his 20th home run of the year tonight. And he's got 37 steals, and he's hitting like 330. Mike Gerber's 25. He's 5.5 years older than Acuna. But Acuna could be a star. Gerber could be a fourth outfielder. It's the difference. But I think when you compare Gerber to somebody like Brennan Bosch, he's on the exact same development track. Different players completely, obviously. Bosch was an all-power guy. Gerber's really more of a 5 fringe to solid average tools. More of I compare him to Andy Dirks or Tyler Collins, really, which doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. But he and Bosch were both guys who moved 1 year at a time. They both spent their first season in the New York Penn League. The first half season after they got drafted, then a full year at West Michigan, full year at Lakeland, and now this is a full year in Erie. And then with Bosch, he played like 20 games in Toledo and then was up in the majors for the next 3 or 4 years before the Tigers got rid of him. And I could see Gerber doing the same thing. It's the only difference is that Gerber was drafted as a senior, whereas Bosch was drafted as a junior. So Gerber came into baseball as a 22-year-old, or as soon to be 22-year-old, whereas Bosch was 21. So that's where the age things comes in. But I don't know. I mean, he's somebody that I would never tell anybody to be excited about him. But he's somebody that I think we will see play, and I think there will be a game or two where he wins for the Tigers down the road.
He'll be the hero that everyone wants him to be. And Simcox has been has been playing better for the Seawolves, and he's been a big reason why the Seawolves have been staying in contention in the second half of the season. Gerber, by the way, hitting .405 since he got back from the DL, and let's talk about Simcox for a second too before we, because I want to talk a little bit of Whitecaps before we end the podcast. But you look at Simcox's development, another guy who was same place as Gerber, but drafted out or born out of Knoxville, Tennessee. He went to Tennessee, but Gerber went to Creighton. Batting .303, and his batting average has been creeping up a little bit. He was flirting with under 250s, but he's back up to about I should say his last 10-3. And is he more like in terms of where you see in the Eastern League? Eastern League is kind of a hitter's league a little bit, but at Benton, he's batting .303 in the last 10 games, .247 on the year. But his on-base percentage kind of stands out to you a little bit, though, Chris, doesn't it?
Well, it's being a little bit low.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That Simcox, he was teammates with Kristen Stewart and Will Maddox at Tennessee, and also teammates with Nick Senzel. But yeah, that's the thing. Simcox is sort of he's not what major league shortstops look like anymore for the most part, other than your Jose Iglesias of the world. And I shouldn't even say that because Iglesias is obviously a near elite defender. And Simcox is he's a no shit shortstop. He's a solid defender, but he's not a Gold Glove type guy. He's not going to hit for enough power really to profile. I think in the majors at shortstop, he's more of a gap power guy. And he's an aggressive hitter who doesn't strike out a lot, but he won't take a lot of walks. And he's athletic, but he's not going to steal you a ton of bags. So he's sort of the shortstop equivalent of Mike Gerber, if you will. And again, there's potential value there as probably a utility guy. I put it this way: if AJ Simcox is your starting shortstop and Mike Gerber is your starting right fielder, your team probably isn't that great.
Or you're the San Diego Padres.
Yeah. Which is basically one and the same.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just looking at on base percentage. I'm like, ugh. So that's the kind of reason why I brought it up. And the last thing I really wanted to talk about really was going on with the Whitecaps. And we talked a little bit earlier about, I asked about Gutierrez and whether or not he's going to be an organizational. I asked you this on Twitter, but now with Anthony Castro, it seems like he's been progressing every start. Here's a guy who I'm surprised he hasn't been down sent to Lakeland yet. Is it because they rather go see what they have going on with Soto and kind of get it? Also because he's so young at this point, or what are they planning on doing Castro? You think?
Well, I think they, given Castro's, he got cut a couple years ago in terms of Tommy John surgery, and I think they just want to take it slow here with this. And this is his first full season back from Tommy John surgery. I think he was in the Gulf Coast League, I believe, last year. So I don't think they want to push him too much. Don't want to do anything that might put undue pressure on his arm or whatever. But so I think we'll see him in Lakeland next year. I think this is kind of the time of the year. You saw Gregory Soto. They moved up to Lakeland. He's had a couple good starts so far. They sent Spencer Turnbull from Lakeland up to Erie. This is the time of year where guys get 3 weeks with the team above just to see what they could do. They may try that with Castro. It seems unlikely. They probably will just keep him around and try to, lean on him a little bit for the. And Gutierrez is a guy who just, I've not seen him pitch, but I've never heard a scouting report on him. And you would think a guy with numbers as good as he has right now, I think he's got it's like a 10-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, and a ERA around 3. You'd think you'd hear a little buzz on somebody like that. I think he's probably just a kid who knows how to pitch a little bit and can locate his fastball, which is fine, but I don't expect him to be a prospect down the road. But I gave myself the caveat of Warwick Supple, who still, is not it's not like he's a great major leaguer, but I never thought he would even make the majors. And so you never really know with pitchers. Sometimes they can just keep moving up the system, and suddenly they're in there, pitching 6th and 7th inning in major league games.
Yeah, and it's just for him in terms of how they're gonna proceed with him after Tommy John. That makes sense. I just seen a sudden surge. A lot of the West Michigan's been just totally wiped out with players going on late when they keep humming along. And another guy who was featured in I don't know if you saw that article I posted on from Baseball America about Austin Sodders.
I missed that. No,
it was a good read. It was his path to the so far in the minors and how he has made adjustments to his delivery. He was once, and let me find it real quick. But as I find it, real quick, the Giants, by the way, getting some bad news. Christian Arroyo is out for the year.
Oh, that's a bummer. There was one of their rookie guys they were hoping to come up and be an everyday, I think, third baseman for him.
Yeah, it's just kind of, which allowed them to sign Pablo Sandoval, who, by the way, said the reason why I played so bad is because it's San Francisco. So apparently pulling a Tony Bennett and saying it's hard in San Francisco. That's the reason why he was struggling. So.
Funny thing about Pablo Sandoval is he's fat enough to have a heart in San Francisco and a stomach in Boston.
I was just, what? You just took my joke. Nice job, Chris. That was good. I was gonna say he left. He definitely took it. He left his stomach in Boston. That's for sure. Ouch.
Yeah,
no, but
what were you saying?
No, I'm trying to find that article.
With Sodders.
Yeah.
Well, Sodders is an interesting guy because his dad was a great college baseball player at Arizona State, and then Sodders he's from UC Irvine or something like that, but he also pitched in the community college at UC Irvine or UC Irvine, but in the same city. Maybe it was Fullerton, I don't know, something like that.
No, he did pitch in Austin.
Riverside?
Riverside. Yeah, I think so.
Riverside. But yeah, so it's interesting. He's been really effective all year long. He hadn't given up, except for his last 2 starts. He hadn't given up more than 3 earned runs in any game. In his last 2 starts, he gave up 5 and 4. but his ERA I think for the season is still under 2. But he's another one of those guys who tears up the lower minors by he can locate his fastball and he's got an above average changeup. His fastball's like 88 to 90, and he's still working on his curveball. So I don't know, he's a guy who fits into the back end, I think, of like a Tigers top 30 list. But I imagine he'll be much higher on Baseball America's list than that, because they sometimes tend to boost guys up based on stats, which is strange from an organization that does so much scouting. But he's sort of a bit like Matt Hall, I would guess, without the breaking ball. Sort of a Matt Hall with a changeup.
Yeah, his ERA is the third best in the 1.62.
Yeah, he's a guy I suspect eventually turns into a lefty specialist reliever, although he's going to need to get a breaking ball to do that. So I don't know. He might end up staying as a starter and being sort of a what was his name? The guy that they used for they traded for Kurt Casale. They traded Kurt Casale for to the Rays.
Oh, the pitcher. Are you talking about the pitcher? You mean, or the?
Yeah, he was a big lefty pitcher who couldn't throw more than like 89. Had a bit of a cutter. How soon? How soon? I forget.
Was it Lobstein?
Lobstein. There you go.
Kyle Lobstein,
Good job. Yeah, he could be a bit of a Lobstein, if you will. But
by the way, Hisader's father, Mike, was the first college player of the year in baseball in 1. Fun fact.
Yeah, he was. When we interviewed him when we were out in West Michigan, I was like, "Oh God, did he play with Barry Bonds?" He was like, "No, he was there before Barry Bonds." I'm like, "Oh, well, that's a bummer." Although it might not have been terribly fun to play with Barry Bonds. But it's interesting. We didn't. We were having an internal Tigestown discussion today, and it'll probably be up tomorrow.
Yeah, I saw what Mark teased it a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know if it'll be behind the paywall or whatever, but we were talking about guys we've been pleasantly surprised in the system this year. And his name didn't come up, although he probably should, just by the way he's performed. But there were some other guys on there. Let's see. I don't know if we've mentioned any of them tonight. Honestly, I'll let you. You can probably guess who we said based on you following the minors.
Okay, so I'm gonna take. I'll take a good three good solid guesses, and I'm assuming are any of them in Erie?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take a guess that Mark Ecker's on that list.
He did not.
Really? Okay.
That's not somebody we mentioned.
The reason why I thought Mark Ecker is because he's progressed pretty quickly. As much as Brian Garcia. I mean, Brian Garcia has to be on the list, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a guy that I think coming into the year we thought that Ecker would be the better reliever than Garcia, and Ecker hasn't been able to get lefties out, which is strange because he's supposed to have a good split change. And Garcia, he had a rough outing tonight. It's probably Toledo, but he's just mowing through the minors. And basically, there's just pleasant surprises. Guys we didn't expect to do as well as they've been doing, and so that was Garcia's definitely counts as that. Maybe I should have expected it because he's been he was a legitimate reliever in college, a closer for Miami forever. But we've seen that story so many times with Tigers drafting these college relievers.
I was just gonna say, I remember didn't we talk about him last year? And I said that kind of like, well, he has a closer makeup, and maybe he'll make an impact. I feel like we had this conversation before.
No, you probably did. I know you've been a fan. I was just, I guess I've been burned so many times by these guys that I didn't expect to. And just the fact, they took him right after they took another reliever. I'm like, well, he's probably not quite as good as the other reliever, which obviously that doesn't mean anything. But
no, but
so he was one of the guys on the list.
Okay, and then I'm sure there's a Flying Tiger on there too. But I would say. I will say, for me, at least, my three surprises have been Cam Gibson, Brian Garcia, and really, Jason Foley. I mean, that's kind of like he came out of nowhere. So
yeah, he was on there.
Yeah. What about Zach Houston? Because I think Zach Houston should be on there. Really?
We didn't mention Zach Houston. No. No, there are a couple. I think guys who might be a little bit more obvious. There are also a couple guys who were a little. I will say this. I didn't expect Kyle Funker to do as well as he has, despite his pedigree. Just
Really?
because,
Wow. Okay.
Well, he was. He's a guy who struggled in the end of his junior season of college and his senior year. I mean, he had the raw stuff, but he couldn't get to it consistently, and I didn't expect him to sort of dominate the way he did. I thought he'd be solid, but I thought maybe this was just a guy who wasn't as good as his early draft projections said. But he's been, when he was healthy, he was dominant. So that was a pleasant surprise for me.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say the reason why I thought that Zach Houston has been a pleasant surprise is just his numbers are eye-popping. 71 strikeouts in 46 innings in in West Michigan. And so far, 11 strikeouts in 7 innings. And he just seems like he's just kind of taking the ball and run with it a little bit in terms of the closer role and featuring a couple different pitches. But, Chris, who's the other surprise you wanted to mention?
Well, there was one. This is just sort of completely off the board. He's not even on our top 50, but he probably will be next year. Is Grayswan Silverio? Or he's so off the board. I don't know exactly how he pronounces his name. Could be like Gran or Grayswan. He's in the GCL right now, Gulf Coast League. He hit pretty well in the Dominican Summer League last year, and he's a catcher / first baseman. And last I checked, he was either leading or second in the Gulf Coast League in hitting. He's hitting like 370. He's walking more than he's striking out, and he's hitting for a little bit of pop as a switch hitter. And he's got some tools to catch too. I don't know. He's got a strong arm. He's got to obviously work on the finer points. We've been burned by young catchers who hit before, but he's a guy. I said he's a pleasant surprise to me because anytime somebody's hitting that well, it's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, the Tigers definitely at this point right now at the catcher position too. I mean, it's good to see that Grayson Grainer has turned it on a little bit for the Seawolves, but it would be nice to get some good news in the catcher front. I mean, Evson Perez seems like he's fallen off a little bit, and he comes in number 30.
Yeah, he's a guy that I never quite understood. Like, we talked about him a few years ago. He had some hitting ability, and he's a strong defender. But I never quite understood why he was, like on national list, he was pumped up. I think sometimes this is the ugly side of prospect ranking business. A lot of times people just take organizations' word for it. That the Tigers developmental staff has been out. These stories you're seeing about Spencer Turnbull and Austin Sodders and stuff like that. This is the player development staff pushing organizations to write stories on these guys. They were out in full force trying to get stories about Matt Manning done. Specifically stories about how raw he is and the athleticism and vague arm strength, without commenting on all the struggles he's had this year. It's puff piece season. And so I think a lot of times the Tigers may have been boosting up, Arvidsson Perez or Franklin Navarro and stuff like that. And when you're a prospect writer, you go to your sources and two guys who say, yeah, I could see it. I'm ready to get in the Tiger system.
You got it, boss.
Yeah.
I will say in terms of prospects, in terms of who's kind of stepped back a little bit, forecast, and we'll save that for next week. Actually, we'll save that. We'll do top 5. We thought they'd be doing better at this point. Well, we'll save that for next week.
Yeah, that's there's some names there for sure.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a couple of them here right now, and one wears number 18. So we're out of time. We're out of time. Thank you so much for listening to Tigers SRD here on SportsRadioDetroit.com. Click, and subscribe to us. Click and rate us. Let us know what you think on our website. On iTunes. Leave us a review on Podbeam, too, as well. Just follow us on Podbeam, iTunes, Stitchler, Google Play, TuneIn, you name it, we have it. And just let us know what you think. Thanks for the we got a 5-star review, so we
nice.
just got a new one, so we appreciate that. And
Thanks,
next
Mom.
week, yeah. Or if it was your wife, thank you, Mrs. Brown. We appreciate that as well. But,
Yeah, my mom would never have any idea.
iTunes, what? Like, yeah. My dad doesn't. My dad wants a tablet just so he can complain about stuff on the internet. That's all he said. He's like, I want to watch TV on there. I'm like, we'll put you in front of a TV, Dad. Anyways, so yeah, please leave us a review. Let us know what you think. We appreciate the feedback we've been getting. And Chris is doing one more podcast, and then he's off for 2 weeks. So, Chris is looking forward to a long vacation, eh?
Well, it's actually just 1 week, but unless you want me off for 2 weeks, which is fine. You can.
No. 2 weeks is
I'm
long enough.
Heading down to Virginia, not Charlottesville, although that's where my dad went to college.
Oh, really?
He went to UVA.
Okay.
And my mom, they're both from Virginia. It's very interesting having conversations with them right now. But we're just going down. So all my grandparents are still. 2 of my grandparents are still alive, and I want them to see my son and meet all my uncles and stuff like that. Maybe let my son see the ocean for the first time. So something, first vacation in like 6 years.
It's well overdue, my friend.
So that should be fun. I appreciate it. Yeah. And then we still have to have some sort of baseball meet up here at the pool, baseball pool party.
Yes, we still have to do that. We have to do that before the pool closes. Maybe Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, well, we got the heater now. So.
Oh, you got the pool anytime you want. Ooh.
That's right.
That is, you know what? We'll talk about that off. We'll talk about that off there. We'll get that all set up. But
all the listeners are invited.
Yes, all the listeners are invited. So if you want to go to the Brown pool party, that's not right at all.
The Brown. Welcome to the Brown pool.
Brown pool, everybody. Brown Perry. Welcome, hey everybody. I just want Perry to agree with everybody as they walk in like that. But yeah, let us know what you think. We appreciate all the feedback we've been getting, and we are going. Yeah, like I said, we're gonna have maybe a week off. Maybe I don't know. I might take a week off. I don't know. I've been kind of going at it hard lately. I did play-by-play tonight, and that was interesting. And so I've been
man for all seasons.
Yeah, and I do. Speaking of vacation, I do need like a 4-day. England doesn't count because that wasn't really a vacation per se. So.
Yeah, well, we can come back and talk about the Arizona Fall League.
Yeah.
Get ready for the playoff push.
Definitely. There is a huge, this postseason I think is going to be an interesting one. So we'll see. We'll talk about that next week and back next week. And until then, see you.